And hello, scholars of room 502. Let's get on our text for close reading. And we're going to be looking at, once again, Here Boy, and that's on page 4. And remember, we wrote down this summary of the passage, the excerpt from Here Boy. It said, "At the Winn-Dixie, Opal sees a dog running wild, knocking things over. When the manager asks someone to call the pound, Opal decides to save the dog by claiming the dog is hers." And we talked yesterday about, in a first person narrative, how they use the word I in the text, and that there's some things that the person, the narrator, is saying that is directly observed. And we underlined that, and then the dog came running around the corner. He was a big dog and ugly and looked like he was having a real good time. And the part that we highlighted in blue, or maybe you highlighted in another color, those were what the narrator is feeling, the first person point of view. Well, today we're going to talk about that wonderful word, inference. And we've talked a lot about that this year in school. And we're going to see what we infer when we read. Now remember, inference is something that's not directly stated. You don't just, it's not boom, it's stated like, and there the dog came running around the corner. There's nothing to infer there. We can envision that dog running around the corner, okay? But then we start having to infer some things about what's going on in the story. So let's go ahead and get started. And we'll start with paragraph 1. "At first I didn't see a dog. There was just a lot of vegetables rolling around on the floor. Tomatoes and onions and green peppers. And there was what seemed like a whole army of Winn-Dixie employees running around, waving their arms, just the same way the store manager was waving his." Now, one inference we can make here is Winn-Dixie that we underlined. We can infer, even though I had never heard of Winn-Dixie, other than from the book, that it's a grocery store. You know, we don't have Winn-Dixies out here. I guess they're back east. But we can infer it's a grocery store because we have the vegetables and the employees and a manager. And if we think about it, we could say, oh yeah, Winn-Dixie is definitely not a clothing store. It might be a restaurant, but nah, I think it's pretty much, I can infer that it's a grocery store. So we can see from this first paragraph that we can infer that, because she mentions a dog, and we could write in here, a dog made a mess. So a dog made a mess, and we could kind of do an arrow at Winn-Dixie. So you see the dog, we can infer that this dog that was running around the corner and vegetables everywhere and a whole army of employees screaming at him, that the dog caused this mess. We can infer that. It doesn't state that anywhere that the dog did this, but we can infer that from here. And then the dog came running around the corner. He was a big dog and ugly, and he looked like he was having a real good time. His tongue was hanging out, and he was wagging his tail. He skidded to a stop and smiled right at me. I never before in my life seen a dog smile, but that is what he did. He pulled back his lips and showed me all his teeth. Now, from that, if a dog pulls back its lips and shows you his teeth, we might infer right here, and it makes the story kind of exciting, and I'm going to put an arrow down here, is the dog dangerous? So is the dog dangerous? Because here he is, she's saying he smiled, but maybe she's misinterpreting this dog that's baring its teeth, and maybe we can make that infer that, maybe this dog is, he's tipped over a cart in a grocery store, and now he's pulling back his lips and showing all of his teeth. Maybe we're inferring he's dangerous, okay? So let's continue on. Then he wagged his tail so hard that he knocked some oranges off a display, and they went rolling everywhere, mixing them with the tomatoes and onions and green peppers. Well, he's wagging his tail, and usually when a dog's wagging his tail, he's friendly. So I think we can kind of infer that maybe he's not so dangerous. The manager screamed, "Somebody grab the dog." Just in that sentence alone, and from prior, it's nowhere does it say the manager is upset, but we could say that he is upset. We can infer that. The manager is upset because we can infer that because the dog's caused this mess, the employees are running around, the manager is waving his hands around, so we can see, or we can infer, we know that he's upset. He's not happy about this situation. Let's continue on. The dog went running over to the manager, wagging his tail and smiling. He stood up on his hind legs. You could tell that all he wanted to do was get face to face with the manager and thank him for the good time he was having in the produce department. Remember, that's something she's interpreting what's going on. But somehow he ended up knocking the manager over, and the manager must have been having a bad day. She's inferring that because lying there on the floor right in front of everybody, he started to cry. Now, if you're that upset that you start to cry, I think we can infer that the manager doesn't care what people think, what his employees and customers think. He's so upset, he is crying. He's crying about having this dog do all these things to his store. And it's always kind of nice to have an illustration like this so we can see, the onions, the bell peppers on the ground, the oranges, and the manager waving his hands. Sometimes we don't need to infer because we have a picture, right? So let's continue on. He began to have a bad day because lying there on the floor right in front of everybody, he started to cry. The dog leaned over him and real concerned, and licked his face. So then I think we could say that if he licked the manager's face, we definitely can infer the dog is not dangerous. So we can infer that if he knocks somebody down and bites him, yeah, he's dangerous, but if he knocks you down and starts licking your face, I don't think he's that dangerous. And let's continue on. Please, said the manager, somebody call the pound. So the manager, do you think he cares about the dog? No, he just wants this situation remedied. The manager wants the dog out of his store. He doesn't care if the dog's going to go to the pound. He just wants that dog out of his store. We can infer that. Then, wait a minute, I hollered. That's my dog. Don't call the pound. All the Winn-Dixie employees turned around and looked at me, and I knew I had done something big, and maybe stupid too, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't let that dog go to the pound. Here, boy, I said. So we can infer that the employees that look around like, what? They are, we'll write employees are surprised that such an unruly dog has an owner. And also, I think what we can infer is that Opal loves animals. It doesn't say that anywhere, but I think because she took this step, she didn't want to see this dog go to the pound. She's saying, okay, I'll take this dog in. So I hope you enjoyed that reread of Here Boy and understand inference a little better. I was trying to remember some examples of inference that we did in class. We talked about some cartoons, some comics that we had to infer some things that were funny. Maybe I'll remember tomorrow. But boy, look at all our notes we took. All right, I will see you tomorrow. Remember to get in those 25 minutes of IXL and Imagine Learning today. And then it's the weekend.